What's up, guys? Welcome back to One Royal Way, brought to you by Kansas City Strength and Conditioning. If you know of a baseball or softball player in the area, have them check out Home Field Olathe. Check them out down there. They train of all ages, all the way up to the pros. Check out our first episode. Scott Barlow trained there this offseason, so he can attest to how great it is there. So be sure to go check those guys out. Can't thank them enough for sponsoring this show here on Kansas City Sports Network. And joining me today is a guy normally behind the scenes here, also co-host Outside the Trenches here on the football side, Tucker Franklin. What's up, man?
Hey, Joel, it's great to be on your show. Thank you for having me on, is what I was trying to say. I was getting too far ahead of myself, but people forget, that I covered the Royals for a brief time with Sports Illustrated, started the Inside the Royals site, have to diversify the portfolio, before I went fully in on the football side. And listen, it's an exciting time in Kansas City. There's some good stuff going on, and I'm excited to give my reactions and give my takes on what's going on.
Yeah, late call to the bullpen from Tuck here. We had a couple other options fall through, but Tuck is always willing and ready, and I appreciate that. Before we talk football, March Madness started today. It's St. Patrick's Day. Games and spring training started. Great day for the sports world all around. How's the bracket looking?
You know what? I had Richmond beating Iowa, so I was okay with that one. I kind of thought that Iowa got hot too quick, because the way that they won the Big Ten tournament, it didn't. I wasn't sold. But bracket for the most part's all right. I usually pick a lot of upsets. I did one bracket that's like I do right when it comes out based on first impressions. Basically just filled off on vibes is basically how I fill it up.
Yeah.
Fill it out.
Yeah.
And then I do one where I think more about it. And then I do one where it's completely random, coin flip. Texas Southern's winning that one, so I doubt that one does very good. But I think we're doing okay right now. I don't think there's been any big busters for me.
Yeah, I had Iowa in the Final Four. It's in real good shape here starting off. Yeah, so that's how my bracket's going, if that tells you anything. But who cares? It's for fun. I'm not in any big money bracket like pools or anything like that. So I got a couple upsets. I did pick Michigan over Colorado State. I got a couple. Yeah. My big one is I have Chattanooga beating Illinois. Waiting on this. I'm hoping for that one. That's mostly out of spite and bitterness because Brad Underwood is the worst person on the planet. So,
fair enough.
I'm a bitter Oklahoma State fan. I'll hold on to that one forever. But as I mentioned at the top, we have some actual baseball news to talk about, not lockout news. It's nothing to do with labor, negotiations, any of that crap. We have actual transactions that have been made, and the Royals are involved. So for the folks that were freaking out for the first 3 days of free agency that the Royals hadn't done anything, that the Royals were just standing pat, what are they doing? They did something, so you guys got your wish. First one that came out Wednesday afternoon, the Royals traded Mike Minor to the Reds for Amir Garrett and some cash to help offset some of Mike Minor's, I believe it's like $10 million salary. So not the full $10 million, but just to help offset for the Reds. And the Royals get Amir Garrett, who I love this move. I think this was a great buy. He's a great buy low candidate here. Really, he kind of struggled in 2020 or 2021, I should say. ERA over 6, just slightly below into the negatives and wins above replacement. But 2020 and 2019, he was awesome. One of the better lefty relievers in baseball. So you're hoping that you're going to get some positive regression there from him, which I think is pretty likely, despite the numbers. Still struck out like 28% of batters he faced, and his FIP and xERA were almost a full run and a half lower than his actual ERA. So some of there's due for some bounce back there. And the Royals needed another lefty in the bullpen. Jake Brentz is good, and I like what he brings. But you don't know what you're going to get from Gabe Spire. He's kind of a quad A guy. I think he's a good, solid dude if you need someone to call up and fill some innings. And Richard Lovelady is still on the mend from Tommy John. So other than that, it's just Jake Brentz. So to get a guy like Amir Garrett who can share some of those high leverage innings with Scott Barlow at the back end of the bullpen, this is a fantastic pickup.
Yeah, and I think I tweeted out too when it happened that this was the most excited I've been for a Royals move in some time. He's a very exciting player just based on name recognition alone. Before you dive into the stats, like you just did, 2021 one wasn't his best year, but man, the dude's dynamite. He's electric and he's fun. And, all those clips coming out of him fighting the whole Pirates team, obviously were surfacing. And he's been great on social media since joining the team down in spring training, saying blue's his favorite color, tweeting out, I think he's wearing number 24 for the Royals. So he's really embraced the team. It seems like he's really excited to be in Kansas City. And that's really what you want from a guy like that. And he's a great arm, and I think he'll be used very well, and as you mentioned, as a left-handed arm too, coming out of that pen will be phenomenal. And they did trade away Mike Minor, who definitely had his ups and downs, but was consistent for the most part in what you were going to get from Mike Minor. I think that to his credit, you knew what you were going to get every time.
Right.
But I think being able to get out from under that contract, I believe he signed a 2-year deal when he signed last year. So being able to get out of that, which wasn't a great deal on the Royals' part, let's be honest, and be able to get out of that and get a guy who is good out of the bullpen and can split some innings with some of these guys to take the load off of, as you mentioned, as taking the load off Barlow, I think is huge there too, not to have to rely on him to pitch so many innings, even though, we know that he's a guy that wants to pitch every inning he can, but having him not have to pitch every inning that he can is I think very crucial, and Amir Garrett does that, and he kind of lightens the load a little bit. But then you start to look at it and you're like, okay, got rid of a starting pitcher, got a relief pitcher. It looks like the starting rotation might be a little thin, but I think they're all right now.
Yeah, we'll talk about that one in just a second. One more thought on Mike Minor. Yeah. I think he served his purpose with the Royals perfectly last season.
I agree. Yeah.
He was brought in to, this is what they told him. I'm sure this was something in that meeting that he had with Dayton Moore and JJ Piccolo. You were going to come in, and every fifth day you're going to throw until your arm falls off, because we need you to eat innings for these younger pitchers that we have coming. And he did that. And I think he threw 180 some odd innings before his shoulder kind of gave out on him at the end of the year. But he still wasn't bad. I think he certainly had some starts there where you knew what you were going to get from him, which was fine. And when you talked about Barlow, I think Barlow's still going to throw a lot. I would not shock me if he's still involved in 70-plus games this season. But what Amir Garrett provides is the ability to, if it's the ninth inning and Barlow's thrown 2 consecutive days, you can go and let Amir Garrett throw the ninth, and you're not having to just rely on Scott Barlow to be your closer. Mm-hmm. So I think that's the biggest piece of this, is you have a second guy now that you trust that can go out and throw high leverage innings, and has done that for a significant period of time throughout his career. I think Josh Staumont can still do that. I think Dylan Coleman is eventually going to be that guy. It wouldn't shock me. Alex mentioned it on the Royals Farm Show that by June 1st, it wouldn't shock me if Dylan Coleman's the closer for this team. Yeah, I think the stuff is that good, and his ability to close out games, I think, is there. Just takes some time to get used to pitching at the big league level full time. But now you have Barlow and Garrett take some of that load off him and not have to rush Dylan Coleman into a role that I foresee him to be in that role as well.
Well, that kind of goes into the question I wanted to ask you, Joel, is how do you see this shaking out at the beginning of the season, right? Do you see Amir Garrett kind of going into that closer role? It'll be closer by committee between Barlow and Garrett, or how do you think that all shakes out?
Generally, what we've seen from Mike Matheny is that it's closer by committee. And I think some of that is they don't have a Wade Davis or a Greg Holland, like a prime Greg Holland type that oh, hey, you're going out in the ninth, or we need you now. I think Barlow turned into that guy. And I think Dylan Coleman is going to be that guy. I think Josh Staumont has the stuff to do it. The control aspect for Staumont, I don't know if he'll ever be that guy full time. But Amir Garrett slots in perfectly as a guy that you can throw in the ninth, and you feel pretty comfortable that he's going to go and get 3 outs. It's just a different animal. I know people want to talk about roles and whether they matter or whether they have value in a bullpen, but I think they do. The ninth, getting those 3 outs in the ninth is just a different beast. And I think the Royals have multiple guys that can go and do that. Whether they can all do it consistently, I'm not sure. But this at least gives you another solid arm that can go and get those 3 outs.
Yeah, and I think it creates some buzz around the team too. And if we're talking to off the field, this move feels like the Royals are trying to win, and I haven't felt like the Royals are trying to win for some time, right? Can't put it on the year, but I think the him going out and getting a name like Amir Garrett, a recognizable guy like that, to add another arm to their bullpen is huge, not only for the on the field implications, but just morale for the fan base as a whole. I don't know if that really makes a whole lot of sense, but I think if you get a recognizable name, I think Andrew Benintendi, I think kind of did that for me last year a little bit. You're like, oh, I recognize this guy's name. I know what Andrew
Right.
Benintendi can do. Benny Biceps, the buzz around him in Boston, and you see that, and you're like, okay, this team is going for it. And I think you can kind of see it now that this team's trying to win. They're getting pieces, they're getting free agents, they're making trades for players, and it's exciting to see. It's become, JJ Piccolo starting to outdeal Brett Veach in some regards in terms of his offseason moves. So it's exciting to see, and I really like the move, as I said.
Yeah. I mentioned it on I think it was the last show, or I might have mentioned on Royals Farm. I can't quite remember, but I remember specifically saying you have to solidify your bullpen if you want to compete in the postseason. Yeah. That was what the Royals did in 14 and 15. That was their calling card, was if they were winning in the sixth, the game was over. You have to get back to that. And other teams have copied that. And look at the White Sox bullpen. It's disgusting. You can probably close out, like if you're losing in the fourth, you might lose that game because of how deep that bullpen is. The Dodgers obviously have had that for a long time. The Braves figured it out at the end of last season with Tyler Matzik and Luke Jackson and the like. So that it's the formula. You have to have solid dudes at the back end that can be the stopper, close out a game. That's the first step in figuring out how to win a ball game. So I think it's something. I don't think it's necessarily the trying to win that maybe you see it as. I'm not quite there yet because I'm still of the belief that this isn't the year. It's 23. So if you want to take those steps, you want to start taking those steps. Plus you have Amir Garrett. Speaking of 23, you have him through 2023. So you get 2 years of Amir Garrett at the back end of a bullpen. That's huge. Now the free agent move that everybody loves. Oh, my heart is singing thinking about it. Zack Greinke's back. 38 years old, but he's back on a 1-year deal, $13 million. Still been really productive in Houston, through 170 something innings last year, 37. I don't even think he's cracking 90 anymore, but the man knows how to pitch. And my favorite thing about this is in his press availability today, he talked about wanting to come back. This is the team he wanted to come back to and to see. And he even mentioned that as late as 2019, he said, this is where I want to be. I want to make this work if we can make it work. That's pretty interesting. I'm a big fan of that. And I think the move, I don't have high expectations for it. I think this certainly part of it it's part nostalgia. I do think there is some aspect of that. Nostalgia is a hell of a drug, but I also think it is there to help the young pitchers. The Royals have a ton of them coming up. I don't think Greinke's going to be that. We all know Greinke. He's a weird dude. He's not going to be a rally the troops guy and sit everybody down and talk shop. But there is something to a guy like a Daniel Lynch, a Jackson Kowar, a Brady Singer, Chris Bubich, John Heasley, Alec Marsh, some of the Will Klein, Dylan Coleman, these young guys that I think are going to come up and debut this year. To see a guy that's done it for 16 years in the big leagues, every fifth day go out there and work, I think that is something that is going to have a profound impact on this group.
Absolutely. And you did hit on the nostalgia thing. And man, I can't remember who I was talking to. I think it was Kent Swanson I was talking to. The T-shirt Tuesday that they did with the King, Queen.
Yeah.
Jack, and then him as the ace. Best T-shirt Tuesday they've ever done.
Oh yeah, that one was spectacular.
And there's people. I'm a part of a Royals bobblehead group, as you can tell. Up here if you're watching on YouTube.
Good stuff.
Got a lot of Royals bobbleheads. One of them is the Zack Greinke Cy Young one that I've got, the Cy Young candidate one. But I think that coming back is another move that rejuvenates kind of this fan base. And I know we talked about it you guys kind of talked about it a whole lot when we were talking about labor negotiations, that you're starting to lose these casual fans. Now, if you're a casual baseball fan in Kansas City and you see, oh, Zack Greinke, I remember that guy. He's coming back. He ended up being pretty darn good. You're going to want to get back into Royals baseball. So I think this is a move that not only helps on the field, but off the field as well. I think you hit the nail on the head when you talked about bringing in veteran pitchers. And I know a lot of people were kind of sour with Zack Greinke on how he left some of the comments he said about Kansas City. And now he's coming back and kind of really mending those fences. And I think that Kansas City always would have welcomed him back with open arms. He's just a special player, a special talent. And it's cool to see him go off and win some on his own and get those awards that he much deserved. But you're right, man. I mean, he's declined a bit, but like still a pretty damn good pitcher.
Yeah,
And that's really exciting that he's going to slot into this rotation after losing Mike Minor. It seems like a net positive it is a net positive when you think about those two trades of adding Amir Garrett, who adds to the bullpen, and then adding Zack Greinke, who is, as you already mentioned, he can eat up some innings. He pitched a lot of innings, and he'll go out there. He's probably like a fourth or fifth guy at this point in his career. But I mean, man, this move is super exciting for, I think, everyone in Kansas City. If you pay attention to baseball, it's going to want to make you pay attention to baseball more, knowing that this guy's back in Kansas City.
I think that Zack Greinke, if he can go out there, and what's crazy about him, he's been so durable still into his late 30s. I'm looking since 2016 or 2017, I guess. He threw 202 and a third, 207 and 2/3, 208 and 2/3. He threw 67 innings in the 2020 shortened season. Then he went out through 171 last year. So obviously there's a little bit of a drop off from 19 to 21, but he's also 38. If he can go out and throw 160, 170 innings again for this team and kind of fill that Mike Minor, like go out and throw until your arm falls off, that has significant value. And honestly, from the nostalgia perspective, it wouldn't shock me if he starts opening day. Because honestly, what is and I'm not trying to take shots, but like, what has Brad Keller done the last couple of years to earn or last year at least to earn that opening day start? What's Brady Singer done to earn that opening day start?
Good point. Yeah.
And like, to put it simply and candidly, Zack Greinke starting on opening day against Cleveland would put asses in seats. especially when you couple that with the potential of a Bobby Witt Jr. debut that same day. You have like the old guard and can you imagine that might actually get about as close to a sellout at Kauffman Stadium as we've gotten since the World Series in 15.
Oh my goodness, that would be too good. That's almost too good, and I don't want to. I don't want to
jinx
Mike
it. No,
Matheny,
I'm knocking on
knock on wood. I don't want to give Mike Matheny that much credit, because that probably won't happen. Gosh, that's a good idea. And the marketing team is got to be salivating over that idea.
Oh yeah, and I think it might be my life goal now to get Zack Greinke on this podcast. He would never do it, but damn it, I would love it.
That'd be awesome. That's the goal. That's the golden goose now. That's the one we gotta chase.
That is the golden goose, because I don't think he is 100% not a podcast guy, but that would be amazing if I could make it happen.
It might be a 3-minute podcast, but hey, I think we would have to.
And what's fascinating about this too, and my friend Patrick Brennan brought it up. He works for another organization now, but still loves the Royals and stuff from Kansas City. And he mentioned that with Greinke talking so highly about Dayton Moore, and because that was one of the main reasons, not just I want to come back because Dayton Moore is that awesome and that great of a person that he would let this happen. Mm-hmm. Zack Greinke might be wearing a Royals cap in Cooperstown. Because I do think Zack Greinke is a Hall of Fame pitcher.
Yeah.
I don't know if he hasn't talked. It's not that he hasn't talked badly about his other stops, but for him to win a Cy Young with the Royals and spend all that time after all the mental health stuff that he went through early on in his career, for them to still stick by him, and then it ultimately leads into him winning a Cy Young, and then he comes back at the end of his career. I think he would wear a Kansas City cap in Cooperstown.
Well, I'm just looking at his baseball reference page right now. Rookie of the year, finished 4th with the Royals. Cy Young, as you mentioned, 17th that year in MVP voting. Was an all-star. Played 7 years in Kansas City. That's like by far the longest he's played anywhere. Arizona, the next longest, with 4. And then he played 3 in LA and Houston. Man, you're looking at it. You'd have to think. He's put up his. Well, maybe not his best number. Well, yeah, I'd say his best numbers in Kansas City. Looking at
outside of the 2015 year when he had like a 1.6 ERA for the Dodgers, and the only reason he didn't win the Cy Young was because Jake Arrieta went like nuclear in the second half for the Cubs. Yeah, and even then he finished, I think, 2nd or 3rd in Cy Young voting in 18, I think, with Arizona. So
yeah, he finished 4th in 2017. He finished 2nd that year in 2015. I mean, he was an all-star in 2019 when he's playing both for Arizona and Houston. So, I mean, listen, the dude still got it. I know 2019 was 3 years ago, but like he's got it. It's going to be exciting. It's a good move for Kansas City, especially to fill that starting pitcher role that kind of Mike Minor was in. I don't think he will perfectly slot into that Mike Minor role, right? I don't think he's going to be just like a carbon copy, but I do think he fills that kind of veteran presence in the rotation that the Royals need with all these young guys in there, and it's certainly exciting. And I think that when I prematurely tweeted that the Amir Garrett was the most excited I've been for a move in a long time. This move actually made me more excited for Royals baseball.
I was very happy. I was very happy. And the fact that I also tweeted it 2 hours prior to it happening and calling it, that felt pretty good. That one felt pretty good.
Well, I thought in his media availability, he made a really interesting comment too. He was talking about how he always wanted to come to Kansas City, but he said now that there's a universal DH, it took a lot of NL teams out of it. Because he said that he's like, well, he still wanted to hit, essentially is what he was saying. But now that there's universal DH, why not come to Kansas City? Because he would playing the same role in any other team he goes to.
And for damn sure, he is going to ask Mike Matheny every single day to DH.
Yes.
He's going to do it. I hope that game 162, like the last game of the year, if the Royals are out of it, then you let Zack Greinke hit 3-hole that day. Like, you have to do it. Because who knows if he's going to be done, if he decides he's going to hang it up after the year. Like, if he makes that clear, then why not? That would be awesome.
I think that was also interesting. It didn't seem like he was done. Like, he wasn't coming here for, like, a swan song. I thought that was really interesting, too. He's like, hey, guys, he's still got it left in the tank, as we've been talking about. But he wants to be here for multiple years. And also, just because there's a DH doesn't mean you have to use a DH.
Yeah.
I don't think.
No, he's totally going to – he's going to get – I'll call it. He's going to get at least 10 at-bats this year.
Okay.
I'll say 10 at-bats. It's going to happen.
Okay. Yeah.
Because he has talked about it, that there is no until like Shohei blew that up. Like, he wants in his career, he wants 10 home runs and 10 stolen bases. And I think he's one shy of each. Check if you can check BREF for me, but I'm pretty sure that is the case, because I think he's talked about it, about wanting to get that 10th home run and that 10th stolen base. So it would not shock me if they make it happen.
Yes, he's got one of each left. 9 home runs and nine stolen bases right now. He's been caught stealing once. Oh, that's got to sting. Especially if that's your goal. But yeah, 9 and 9. Yeah, they'll make it happen. Especially, you got to think, especially too, if God forbid if the Royals are out of it here in a little bit. Not in a little bit, but like at the end of the season, you're like,
by beginning of September. Yeah.
You know what, Zach? How about you just be our DH today? How about you just go and take a bunch of ABs, just try to get on base. Maybe pinch run him. Maybe see if you can get that stolen bag. Who knows? Let's have some fun. I love it. I'm curious if the universal DH does, because it takes away some of those like weird oddities of like pitchers needing to pinch run because they like that spot's up and they need to come in the game. Like. Mm-hmm. It's gonna change the game and make it really interesting. But I know the Royals will still find a way to do it because it's Zack Greinke. He's gonna find a way. He might. It also wouldn't shock me if he just decides, you know what? I'm just gonna go and grab a bat and stand on deck until someone stops me. Yeah, that dude. I mean, that dude. We've seen some crazy stuff from him. One of my favorite Zack Greinke pictures, I think it was when he was in Houston, when he was sitting like crisscross applesauce.
Yeah. Oh, as they were fixing the mound. Yeah.
Yeah, he was sitting there like that, legs crossed. I don't know why, but sitting in the stands is also a wild one.
Yeah, he would do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and he's just like the art and the artist, you have to separate the art and the artist is one of those things. But like, man, I think just the whole Zack Greinke experience is just enthralling to me.
Yeah. Have you seen the story that he talked about with Alex Gordon early in Gordo's career? Okay, so this is my favorite Zack Greinke story ever. He it was right when Gordo came up, so this is like 2007 or something like that. Mm-hmm. And he was really struggling. He was in a major slump, and they, he's trying to figure out, like, I don't know what's going on. Greinke comes up to him and goes, "Hey, let me go show you something." And so they go into the film room at the time. This was again 2007, And so Gordo's thinking, oh, maybe Zach saw something in my swing. They're going to go over it. And Zack Greinke pulls up a video of him hitting a home run and then looks at Alex and says, "Do more of that," and then walked out of the room. It's perfect. It's just, it encapsulates everything about Zack Greinke.
Yeah, dude. But awesome. I love it. I love it so much.
And the thing about it, too, there's no such thing as a bad 1-year contract. So
Mm-hmm.
there's no such thing as a bad 1 year deal. So you can make this work for 1 year. And if it doesn't work, okay. But if it does and it work and he's worth that 13 mil, shoot, like that was a absolute home run. And to be able to get him back to Kansas City, a place that he wanted to come back to, and a place to help a ball club start to turn in that winning direction, certainly is a big deal.
I think I could be wrong on this. I don't know how much the Royals saved on Mike Minor. It's like, did they save like $8 million? Yeah, or something like that. So like, when you really start to think about it, this is the way my brain works. Okay, they saved $8 million on Mike Minor. They signed Zack Greinke for 13. But they really signed him for 6. When you think about how much they saved with Mike Minor, that's not actually how this stuff works. But that's how
I see where you're coming from with it.
But yeah, I'm obviously, you probably know my stances now. I'm with it. I love it.
Yeah, I'm totally with it. Yeah, you can't. As I think Alex said it on Royals Farm, like you can't tell me nothing right now. Like this is so good. So the last piece of news, and we don't have any confirmation on this. This is purely reports, but the Royals have been interested in a deal for Frankie Montas, the pitcher for the Oakland A's. There were some reports that Ken Rosenthal put out yesterday. Alec Lewis confirmed them today that they are still in talks. I haven't heard anything outside of the initial report, so I don't know how far this has gotten. But the fact we've heard for 2 straight days tells me there's still some smoke around it, despite still signing Zack Greinke and getting that veteran pitcher that they wanted. Frankie Montas was really good last year. Had an ERA. It was 3.37 ERA. Struck out. He struck out over 200 in 187 innings. Wipeout stuff. Upper 90s fastball. Disgusting splitter. Still has 2 years of control, so the Royals will get him for 2 years. And I saw people trying to draw some comparison to the James Shields trade, where the Royals think they're maybe getting into that window. And so you go and get a veteran starting pitcher with 2 years of control, and you maybe give up a hefty price to get him. I think the difference here is James Shields was an elite ace, and he was a bona fide ace at that point in his career. Frankie Montas is good. That's the difference there. Frankie Montas is a fine pitcher. He proved his worth last year. That was also the first season that he threw over 100 innings. Yeah. And the 1 year he was going to throw 100 innings, he got popped for a PED suspension and got suspended the rest of the year. So, and he's gotten hurt in some spots. I just don't know. I think he'd be a good pitcher, and I think he would be your ace. He'd be your one right away coming into Kansas City. But I think the price might be a little too high. If it's drug on for this long of just like they're in talks and not working toward a deal, they probably want a little more than what the Royals are willing to give up for a guy that is you still don't quite know what you're going to get out of him, despite him being good. I don't know. I don't love the move at this point. If you're going to go and get it, then go and get someone that's, I think, established themselves a little more, I guess, is where I would go. I don't know who you go get, but that's my general feeling on it at this point. If they go make them, I won't hate it, and I'm not going to be pissed.
Right.
I just don't know if that would be the guy I would go get.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting move, especially as we've already mentioned in this podcast, with so many young guys that the Royals have coming up and have in their farm system. I know Frankie's only 28, and so like he's not like old, but he's also not like young. But he did pitch well. I'm looking at the Fangraphs projection here, and they've got a slight increase in his ERA and less innings is what they're predicting here for him. So I think that's obviously you can't put a bunch of stock into that, but and I think you hit the nail on the head too when you talk about him being a bona fide ace like James Shields. Like that's not him. Like that's not him yet. And can he be? Maybe. I mean, he's got a 70 grade fastball. You mentioned before we started this podcast, his splitter is nasty and
it's gross. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's got the tools. I'd love to see him put it together. That the PD suspension's not great. It seems like right when he was getting rolling and everything like that. So I don't know what you give up for a guy like this, especially, with the Royals that do have such a rich farm system. You don't want to give up a ton of guys that you think will end up helping your team, especially this year with the rotation for a guy you do only have 2 years of control over at most. And he's, free agent in 24, ARB eligible in 22. So, I mean, it's a very tough situation for me personally. I mean, like you said, Joel, if it happens, I'm not going to be upset, right? But like if it was up to me, I wouldn't really encourage it, if that makes sense.
So I think it would be different if the Royals really thought they were going to make the playoffs this year. Like if they had a team that was going to go out and win 85 games, you 100% you go and get Frankie Montas to solidify your rotation. I don't think the Royals are going to do that this year. Maybe I'm a little cynical. You could look at it that way. I don't think it's about this year. And I'm probably going to say that a lot throughout the season because you have so many young guys that you want to give an opportunity to see what they have. So when you go into 2023 thinking, we have a chance for that second or third wild card spot, then you know what you have, and then you can go make moves based on that. But for a lot of it, you don't quite know. So I don't think this would be a move I would make. But if they did, that tells me maybe they think they're a little closer to winning than they could be.
Right.
I guess the other part of it too is this might be the move to make. There's two schools of thoughts here, and I think we're going to talk about it a little more on Royals Farm Report coming out next Monday as we break down some guys that could be involved in a move like this. But you have a lot of guys that are coming up on 40-man eligibility over the next 2 years. A lot of guys that are good. A lot of guys I think could be potential big leaguers, impact guys, for the Royals. But you have a lot of them, and you don't have a lot of space on the 40-man roster. So if you were going to make a move, this would be the time to offload some of that so you have less roster crunch going into 23 and 24. But are they guys that you want to give up that think that might end up hurting you down the road when Oakland rebuild? Because with this Oakland rebuild, like they're going to be good again in 2 to 3 years. It's just what Oakland does. They blow it up every 5 years, and then 2 years later they're amazing again with all those young guys they stockpile. So it's a bit of a risk reward. There are guys that I would be okay throwing into a deal for Frankie Montas. It would probably take at least one top 5, maybe I don't know about top 5, maybe like at least one top 10 and maybe a couple fringe top 10 guys. It would be probably a 3 or 4 for 1. And are you willing to do that? Because it's not like the James Shields deal was a 5 for 1. They got it, and I don't even think we look at it as the James Shields trade anymore. It's the Wade Davis trade. Yeah. It's the Wade Davis trade. 100%. So it's not like there's another dude that the A's are going to throw in that sweetens the pot a little bit for the James Shields move. It's just Frankie. So do you want to make that move and risk injury or regression or a significant regression from a career year? That's a tough call to make. And that's why I'm not a general manager.
Right. I'll leave that to JJ and Dayton. But no, I think that's a really good point. And, as I brought up earlier, with such good players in the Royals farm system, like, man, do you really want to give up those guys? As you mentioned, it's probably going to have to be a top 10 guy in the system for a guy that's going to be with you for maybe 2 years. Yeah. And it's just like one of those things. It's a risk reward type, analysis. And I don't know if I've seen have you seen any other teams involved with Montas?
I think I saw maybe the Cardinals were interested, and I'm sure there's other teams calling. It wouldn't shock me with Olsen gone, Chapman gone, Bassett gone. Teams are going to continue to call, and Frankie's probably the best pitcher available right now, and Sean Manaea too. So there are plenty of teams calling the A's, and I don't even know if I wouldn't make a move for Sean Manaea either. Let's just put that away. I think his injury history is a little concerning, and I think he's just okay. I think Montas is a better pitcher than Manaea. Manaea is okay.
Yeah, it's just, as you mentioned, they're selling everybody off. The Cardinals, I think we're talking to them about somebody else too in a deal with them. I've got a couple Cardinals buddies that were talking about it, and I tried to tune that out, honestly. All the Cardinals chatter, but yeah, I think that it's an interesting move that I don't know if I necessarily would want them to make, but as we've reiterated, if they made it, we wouldn't be upset. But like, do you really, as of now, I don't think I'd want them to make it.
I don't think I would either. But the fact that we've heard it for 2 days of them being in talks, I think that's enough smoke to think that it could happen. And if it does, hey, we'll see what happens and what they gave up, and if I'm going to be mad when they give up Vinny Pasquantino, because that would make me mad. But again, we'll talk about that, Alex. Josh and I will talk about that a little more later this week as we kind of break things down. So, Tucker, you got any final thoughts here? I just want to hit these 3 big things. Anything you're looking forward to this week? Spring training games start tomorrow. So when this comes out,
yeah, that's awesome, and I'm excited. This is one of the best times of the year. March Madness going on. You've got spring training happening right now, starting the same week. It would still be going on if they started the season on time. Actually, I think the opening day was the 31st, right? That's what it was supposed to be.
So we're
championship.
We're a week behind.
Okay.
Yeah.
So still, I mean, man, you had the Red Sox in the St. Patrick's Day uniforms on MLB Network today. Tis the season for spring baseball. Love it. Love what the Royals have been doing, what they're building up. I think I saw Alec tweeted out just like their infield was like Bobby Wood at third. Was it Mondesi at short? And it
was Bobby at third, Nicky at short, Mondi at short, Nicky at first, and then at second, and then Santana.
Santana. I saw that and immediately got excited.
Because part of it too, Matheny mentioned today in his little presser, he said John Heasley's going to get the start, which really means he's going to throw an inning, and then they're going to go to somebody else. But he's getting the first inning, and then he said the lineup will get you excited. It'll be a fun lineup, which tells me that Bobby's going to be in it. It's probably going to be a pretty good indicator, at least early on. My impression is that means it's going to be the precursor to what the opening day lineup is going to look like. And if Bobby's in there,
I'm going to go ahead and hedge my expectations that we're going to see just like an incredible spring training from Bobby Witt, right? I think we're going to see him just play really well and then start the season in Omaha. I'm just going to go ahead and temper the expectations. I would love to see Bobby Witt play in third opening day. I want that more than anything. And now that you mentioned Zack Greinke getting the opening day start, I want to see Bobby Witt at third, Zack Greinke on the bump. Now I've got to temper those expectations. That's what it's all up to do.
So I'll put it this way, and this is about this will be my final thought. But if the Royals are serious about winning and about trying to give a crap this season, you can't start Bobby Witt Jr. in AAA.
Bingo.
It's as simple as that. He is your best player right now. Outside of Salvador Perez, he's your best player. Why would you keep that guy down in AAA?
You shouldn't, and
you shouldn't.
Right? He should be on the opening day lineup. He should be batting first, probably.
There's about 4 or 5 guys that if they get at bats over Bobby Witt Jr. on opening day, I'm going to come on this podcast very upset. I'll leave it there. I'm not going to slander anyone. I've done that enough on other shows, but.
Good vibes only, though. Good vibes only going into it. Going into the spring training, we got to keep the good vibes. I know I kind of went down a dark path right there. Changing course, going into reverse, pulling a U-turn. Good vibes only. It's going to be great. I'm excited. The Royals have made moves to make me excited, and that is amazing. And I cannot be happier so far with their offseason.
Yes, and I think there'll probably be another move or two. Yeah. Maybe just small stuff, kind of what they normally do. But I could see them making another move, kind of see what happens. But thank you. That's all I have for this one. Thank you so much, Tucker, for, again, late call to the bullpen. Appreciate you coming on here and helping me out so I don't have to do this thing solo and people don't have to listen to just me talk for an entire show. I'm sure no one wants that. To everyone watching on YouTube, thank you. Be sure to slap a like on this. Subscribe to Kansas City Sports Network if you haven't already. You're obviously K-State stuff, Mizzou, KU, Ain't No Seats is doing a lot of good stuff for the tournament. Yeah. The Border War podcast is great as well. Obviously, all the Chiefs content, Outside the Trenches with Tucker, the Lab, and the like. Royals Farm will be coming out on Monday, so be on the lookout for that. And be sure to subscribe on Spotify, iTunes, wherever you get your podcasts, to KCSN Kansas City Royals. That's where you'll find this show and Royals Farm and anything else to come. Appreciate you guys. Talk to you next week.